Hello, my name is Jen, and today I'm going to talk about leveraging testing to understand users and customers. In particular, I'm going to dive into how testing is common or unique when it comes to online companies as well as offline businesses. Before diving into those topics, just a little bit about me and why I'm passionate about the topic here. I was a consultant at APT the States, and it was acquired by MasterCard later on. The company focused on advising offline giants in the retail, banking, CPG space about like how to conduct business testing and customer analytics. Then I joined Instagram. Currently, I am at LinkedIn, focusing on job seeking and hiring marketplace, a lot of testing in the online world. My experience in both the offline and online testing made me interested in this topic that I'm talking to you today. Great. So what are the commonality and differences when it comes to testing in those two different companies? Here's how I think about it into 2x2 matrix. There's two dimensions that are very different for online and offline companies. First, user and customer level data availability is drastically different for online and offline companies. Usually for online companies, we have a lot of those data available. And for offline companies, oftentimes that's not the case. We don't have the luxury of user level data when it comes to analytics. The second dimension is whether your user is exactly your customer. For offline companies, that is usually the case. The users who are experiencing your store coming to buy stuff, they're usually your customer as well, who are end of the day paying for the services you provided. For online companies, it's actually different, oftentimes different, in that it could be people who are using your app, not necessarily be the people who are paying and creating revenue for your business. When you see those differences, that can actually determine the challenges in testing. In particular, when we start about thinking about testing, it's usually in the blood for so many different online companies to conduct A/B testing. Why is that? We talked about the user level data. It really comes down to the availability of data, and you can track user impacts to randomize your initiative or your products based on different A/B groups. And then we have a team to build a strong data foundation to provide a rapid A/B testing framework. That is not usually the luxury for offline companies, and they're usually playing the catch-up game. So that's the reason why buzzwords you will hear a lot in the retail space, they are customer-centric as well as data-driven. We'll talk first about how offline companies are coming around with those challenges in testing, and then talk about different set of challenges in the online company space. So how offline companies are becoming more customer-centric. The first step is just to acquire customer data. And the way that people usually do it is through the loyalty program. So in the news, you will see that Target or Nordstrom, they're ramping their loyalty program. It is providing a benefit and increased retention, but it is also leveraging the data behind it to make sure that they can understand their customers better. It is also interesting to note that Square, a payment service company, is also providing loyalty program add-on for their merchants, such that merchants can manage their small network of loyalty programs as well. Now, that doesn't say if you don't have customer data, you cannot do any testing. For the offline companies, they're thinking about this very creatively, and they're using their physical store network to conduct testing. So how is this done? First of all, you want to select a representative set of test stores or regions within your network. Then you implement the initiative in a test cohort. That can be new product introduction, store remodel, etc., etc. Then you find a match control group, using the control group to determine what could have been the change from the baseline period to the test line period. Ultimately, the difference of the true change of the test group versus the expected change is the impact of the test. So visually, when you look at the graph from the left, the performance is exactly the same between test and control before the baseline, but then they're separating in the test periods such that you can confidently determine what is the impacts of your initiative. Now, compared to A/B testing online, it's oftentimes more complicated. Number one, it's more executional challenging and costly. And what that requires is that you do need to have a culture of test and learn to really conduct those tests and making sure people have the conviction in making a data-driven decision. It is also the case that if you don't fully randomize like a online A/B testing, there can be biases, and you have to leverage technology such as similar geo or similar store matching to make sure you have an accurate read. Lastly, the store network is not as vast as the online user network, and you have limited capacity for concurrent testing. And here you do have to have a testing governance to have a clean read on different initiatives. Now, switching gear towards online companies, they have the user data, then is it basically easy as everything to conduct testing? Not really. It's a very different set of challenges. I'll name two here. One, oftentimes you have too many metrics to monitor, and they can be sometimes moving in different directions and creating conflicting stories. So how online companies are tackling that? For LinkedIn, the way that we think about it is really to determine what is the one true north star metric that you want to monitor and manage within your ecosystem. For the job seeking journey at LinkedIn, for any job seekers, we map out a funnel and make sure we really focus on the true north and then tie the entire system and teams go around that particular true north. For LinkedIn hiring, that particular true north is hires. We want to make sure we can deliver hires to our job seekers as well as our job posters. That solve part of the problems, but not all. You can still have a very conflicting stories when you are coming to the entire ecosystem. Let's take ads, for example. What if your feed user engagement is up, but when you look at the revenue from feed, it's actually down? When you think about this, in fact, wouldn't all users prefer no ads at all? So why are we having these questions often? This is coming back to our differences talked about for the online companies. When your user is not necessarily your customer, and there are trade-offs decisions associated with it. That's very common in ad-based revenue models such as Facebook and Google, and also very common for revenue that you're generating from one side of the marketplace, whereas your user is the other side of the marketplace. In our LinkedIn example, that is LinkedIn Jobs. So how do we tackle that? The second problem, we really look at a way to connect the engagement with our revenue. In particular, we looked at, in this case, can we determine the relationship between how many job seekers we can deliver for a job poster and the long-term retention, the long-term LTV of that job poster? It is very clear that yes, the more we can deliver for a job poster, the more we have with that job poster in the long run with a diminishing return curve. And that particular framework can help us to determine for tests in the long run if there's an increase in engagement, in organic engagement such as application, but then decline in short-term revenue, we can bring the long-term revenue into the picture to tie both sides together. Great, so we talked about the difference in the online and offline companies. We talked about the user customer level data availability, which is often the case for online companies, but the challenge is sometimes too many tracking and too many metrics such that they need to determine a North Star. For offline companies, it's oftentimes no, but they're becoming more digitally relevant through loyalty programs and then can test through their network. For online companies, when it comes to user and customer, they're not necessarily the same, and then they have to have a framework to make trade-off decisions. And then for offline companies, they are oftentimes the same. In the case that a store, the voice of customer can often be heard by the vote of their wallet dollars, such that there's no confusion around what metric to track and understand. So if there's one thing that you can take away from this presentation, that is how companies are approaching testing differently, and that has become a very interesting convergence. Offline companies are becoming more rigorous in testing through digital relevancy. For online companies, they're developing their true north metric and trade-off frameworks because users is not exactly their customers. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can reach me at the contact information below. Thank you.